The story of ancient Egypt is often told through towering pyramids, glittering treasures, and powerful pharaohs. But beneath the grandeur of kings and queens lies another story, one more intimate but no less remarkable, the story of daily life. For more than 3,000 years, generations of Egyptians lived, worked, and raised their families along the fertile banks of the Nile. It was in the ordinary details, the baking of bread, the rhythm of the river, the stories told at dusk, that the true strength of this civilization was forged. So, join us as we journey back in time to spend a day with the people who built one of the world's greatest cultures. The Egyptians were a people deeply in tune with their environment. The rising and setting of the sun dictated their hours, while the yearly flooding of the Nile structured their agricultural calendar. Unlike us, who often try to bend nature to our will, the Egyptians adapted themselves to its cycles, seeing the very hand of the gods in them. Each sunrise wasn't just light, it was the rebirth of the sun god Ra, a daily miracle that renewed the world. Each flood of the Nile wasn't just water, it was the gift of Hapi, the divine bringer of fertility and life. A typical day began with the first glow of dawn. As golden light poured over the mud brick houses clustered along the river, a new day was born. These homes were marvels of practical design. Built from clay baked hard by the desert sun, their thick walls kept the interiors cool despite the blistering heat. The roofs were flat, often serving as open-air sleeping quarters on hot summer nights, or as an extra living space where children could play and women could grind grain. Inside, the rooms were simple, with reed mats for beds and clay jars for storage. Wealthier families might have painted walls and wooden furniture, but even the humblest home was built for function and resilience. In many homes, the woman of the house was the first to rise. Unlike in some ancient societies, Egyptian women carried significant responsibilities. They managed household finances, oversaw servants, and often ran their own small businesses. One of the most vital morning tasks was preparing bread, the cornerstone of the Egyptian diet. This was laborious work, beginning with grinding emmer wheat or barley into flour using heavy stone querns. The process required strength and endurance, and it was indispensable. The dough was mixed with water, sometimes flavored with dates or honey for the wealthy, and baked in clay ovens. That earthy, slightly sweet aroma was one of the most familiar scents of Egyptian life. Hygiene was also a key part of the daily routine. Despite lacking modern plumbing, Egyptians valued cleanliness. Water fetched from the Nile or drawn from wells was used for washing. To clean their teeth, they chewed on frayed sticks from what we now call the toothbrush tree. The wealthy might even use powdered salt or crushed herbs as toothpaste. Personal grooming included perfumes, oils to moisturize the skin, and of course, the iconic black kohl eyeliner. Men and women alike traced bold lines around their eyes. This wasn't just vanity. Kohl reduced the sun's glare, helped prevent eye infections, and was believed to offer magical protection. For the Egyptians, appearance and spirituality were inseparable. Breakfast revealed the sharp differences between classes. A wealthy household might enjoy soft bread drizzled with honey, fresh cheese, figs, and dates. Beer, lightly fermented and low in alcohol, was a staple drink for everyone, providing both hydration and nutrition. For poorer families, breakfast was more austere coarse bread, onions, and water. Yet even the simplest meal had a sense of ritual, a daily reminder of the gods' generosity through the fertile Nile. By mid-morning, the community was fully awake, and work began in earnest. In Egypt, work schedules were dictated by the sun. The oppressive midday heat could be fatal, so the most labor-intensive tasks were done in the cool hours of the morning or late afternoon. This careful rhythm of work and rest was key to survival. Most Egyptians were farmers, their lives intertwined with the Nile's cycle of flooding, growth, and harvest. The agricultural calendar was divided into 3 seasons: Aket, the flooding; Pare, the growing; and Shemu, the harvest. When the Nile rose, it submerged the fields in nutrient-rich silt, a natural fertilizer that made Egypt the breadbasket of the ancient world. As the waters receded, farmers plowed, sowed seeds, and tended to the irrigation canals that channeled the life-giving water. Farmland technically belonged to the pharaoh temples or wealthy nobles, so farmers worked as tenant laborers, giving a portion of their harvest as tax or rent. Life was grueling: long days under the sun, backs bent to the soil, with children joining the work from a young age. Yet farming was also seen as a sacred duty. To cultivate the earth was to participate in the cosmic order, ensuring life for all. In towns and cities, artisans and craftsmen formed another backbone of society. Carpenters, potters, stonemasons, and metalworkers carried on trades that were both practical and spiritual. A carpenter shaping wood for a boat, or a stonemason carving a statue, might dedicate his work to Ptah, the god of craftsmen, seeking a divine blessing for his skill. Apprenticeship was common, with boys learning under masters from a young age. Their work followed the rhythm of the day, strenuous effort in the morning, a pause during the brutal midday sun, then renewed activity in the afternoon. Unlike farmers, whose work ebbed and flowed with the Nile's seasons, craftsmen worked year-round, their skills always in demand. And Egypt was not isolated. It was a vibrant hub of commerce. Merchants carried goods along the Nile and beyond, linking Egypt to Nubia, the Levant, and the wider Mediterranean. Trade was conducted largely through barter, using copper, silver, or grain as units of value. Negotiation was an art, requiring not just math skills, but also cultural sensitivity. A successful merchant had to read people as well as numbers, building relationships that ensured fair exchanges. Every transaction required record-keeping, and here the scribes played their indispensable role. As masters of writing and mathematics, scribes documented contracts, taxes, and inventories, the paperwork that kept Egypt running. Their education was demanding, but it offered a path to social mobility, raising them above ordinary laborers. In a society where the written word determined ownership and law, the scribe's pen was as powerful as a soldier's sword.
Women too
participated actively in economic life. Wealthy women could own property, inherit estates, and run businesses. Merchant women supervised textile workshops and negotiated contracts. Even women of modest means contributed by producing bread and beer, or through entertainment and local religious rituals. Far from being confined to the home, women's skills were vital to Egypt's economy. And at the heart of it all flowed the Nile. The river was not just the source of water and fertile soil. It was Egypt's highway. Boats of all sizes crowded its waters, carrying grain, gold, cedar wood, and countless other goods. Boatmen were skilled navigators, reading currents and winds and avoiding sandbanks and crocodiles. They transported not only cargo, but also people pilgrims, visiting sacred temples, officials traveling between towns, and families visiting relatives. The Nile was Egypt's artery, binding its economy, culture, and society together. As the sun began to sink and the fierce heat softened, daily labor gave way to evening life. Families gathered for their main meal, neighbors came together to talk, and villages pulsed with music, laughter, and ritual. This was a time for storytelling, for passing down myths and legends from one generation to the next. It was a time for simple pleasures, playing board games like Senet, listening to a harpist, or just enjoying the cool evening air. As darkness fell, the day ended as it began, in alignment with nature's rhythm. The Egyptians' deep connection to their environment, their gods, and each other was the invisible foundation upon which their magnificent civilization was built. Their lives, filled with hard work and simple joys, remind us that the true legacy of a culture is found not just in its monuments, but in the daily routines of its people. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the daily life of ancient Egypt. If you found this fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from the ancient world. We'd love to have you as part of our community. See you in the next video.